Tired of paying 10%, 15%, or more to sell your cards, comics, and digital collectibles? How does 1% sound? Too good to be true? Well, not anymore. MySlabs.com is the web's premier user-driven marketplace for buying and selling slabbed cards, sealed wax, and now, slabbed comics and digital collectibles. So the next time you're forced to pay 10% or more to sell something from your collection, head over to MySlabs.com and join the 1% revolution.
What's up, everyone? You know what night it is. Wednesday night, Off-Centered with Dustin, the artist formerly known as the Personal Finance Dad, currently and going forward known as Sports Card Dad. Guys, we did it. We got Dustin to change his name. It only took 6 weeks of hounding him, getting the top content creators and personalities and CEOs in the game to tell him to rebrand, and it was well worth it. So hard work pays off, especially when peer pressuring a content creator like Dustin. So very excited about that. Tonight's going to be great because we got a lot of football to talk about. We have the Mint Collective, which is a very unique, massive show coming up at the end of the month that I'll be going to, and it looks like Dustin is now going to be going to as well, and we'll be talking to one of the major partners of the Mint Collective, Ezra Levine, who's also the CEO of Collectable. So it's going to be a great hour. Hope you're ready, and y'all already know the drill. Welcome back. Now let's get to work. Let's do it. Dustin, the Sports Card Dad.
What's up, man? How are you?
How's it going?
It is going good. I feel different. It feels like a different day.
I was gonna say, like, 2 years of the Personal Finance Dad.
Fresh new coat.
Yeah. I mean, and this, it did not look like this was going to happen. And so even though we were nudging you in that direction of, hey, what about Sports Card Dad? What about, what's the other ones? PF
I was thinking
Dad?
about PF Dad, sports cards, PFD sports cards. Yeah. I was going back and forth on a few different things.
And what made you finally go with the Sports Card Dad? I'm going to make it, there we go. That's our style right there. And yes, the GOAT is back. Big week.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I kicked around a few different things. I think that one just kind of made the most sense. When thinking about PFD might be confusing for new people that don't know my channel. For people that already do know it, it wouldn't be. But yeah, I was just thinking long term, that one made the most sense. And then
Troy nailed it right here.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, Troy. This is not where you can receive fatherly financial advice. Now we're talking about sports cards. So,
yeah,
okay.
It wasn't an easy decision. I don't know. I got used to that. You know, that's like my original channel name. So it's difficult to make a change. But this is, as Gary Vee would say, is this an 80-year project or a 100-year project? That's kind of how I look at this. So, 2 years in is, dropping the bucket as far as time frame goes. So it made sense.
Well, I am proud of you. And I think a lot of people are proud of you as well, because now Sports Card Dad is something you can own. It's accurate. It's short and sweet. And yeah, man. So I'm looking forward to big things with you. Good to see everyone in the chat as well. AJ Rose, Mike C, John Williams. You guys, the Bills just got Von Miller, right?
Yes, 6-year deal or something, kind of odd, but okay.
Hey, yeah. Good for the Bills. AFC is going to be tough next year. I mean, I don't know about NFC should be easy except for the Packers and the Rams, but AFC looks brutal.
Yeah, AFC does look brutal for sure. What's up, Ryan? John Wolf.
Good to see David in here. Newsletter is pretty much done by David Hunter. That will be out tomorrow. Tyler Watts, good to see you as well. Mike C is happy for you. Good to see you, Philly Joe. Happy 2 years. Yeah. Well, actually, it's a bit more for you than more than 2 years.
It's actually 2 years on the 22nd. So I was a little bit early. I did it a little bit early.
I love some of these comments too. No plans tomorrow. Select and collect. But Brendan, yeah, it's like, who are you, man? Like, this is the problem with you renaming, is that now we can't spend 10 to 15 minutes convincing you to rebrand. Right?
Yeah, you're out of material now. Now you're out of material, and it's like,
like now we just got to bring the guest on because we have nothing else. I am a bit tired tonight because I did go out last night. I actually went out to dinner and drinks with a couple people, like a group of people, but two of which are big high-end collectors here, but no one really knows of in the hobby.
I was trying to piece together what you were talking. Yeah, I know this. Yeah. People
Yeah,
that you would know on people you would know on TV. In fact,
yeah, it was actually really cool. And the cool thing about it is that we went out in a group, didn't talk about cards, yet cards were how we originally connected. And so I think what's really pretty neat about it is that you can find someone and talk about cards, because it's a pretty niche hobby, right? You know, everyone loves sports. Most people love sports, but cards are very specific. And when you could find someone and talk about cards too, then it just opens the door to, well, what are you doing here? Why do you live in LA? And what are you pursuing? And what are you about? And all that stuff. And that's exactly what happened. And I got noticed, someone recognized me at the gym here in LA. So shout out to Alan in New York, who's on, I guess, vacation here. His family's here for coming up to me and just chatting with me for about 5 to 10 minutes. So
nice.
That was my day.
What about the girl? You still seeing the same girl, or is she done with you yet?
She's actually in Vegas, so we're still seeing each other. I'll be staying with her during the Mint Collective. So if anyone else is here or anyone else going to Vegas, you might actually meet her. Maybe I'll bring her out one of the days. Who knows?
Fair. I can actually, well, hopefully this isn't like a Monte Tao fake girlfriend situation, but I'll let everyone know in the chat. Trust me, if it is, I will share it. There will be a whole series of videos on that. Don't you?
All right. Hey, fair enough. Whatever brings you content. Change your name to the Bachelor Card Invest. Man, that's pretty good.
Oh, Brad might have his own changes coming soon.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the sex change? Oh no, you're talking about the channel changes. The channel changes.
Anything for the viewership. Anything for the hits. Yeah. Well, Dustin and I are working on something together. It was that podcast project I've mentioned numerous times. It's gotten pushed back a few months, but Dustin's going to be a part of it. And who knows? It might be on my channel and there might be a rebrand. It's a bit early for that. But without further ado, let's bring on our guest because we have a lot to cover. He is the CEO of Collectable. I think he's putting his cup of water down, getting ready for our amazing introduction. He is Ezra Levine. What's up, man?
What's up, guys? How are you?
What's up?
Great.
What's going on? I'm good. I'm good. It was not water. It was coffee. It was coffee. My day starts around 4 o'clock in the morning. I have 2 kids, all that stuff. So this 9 o'clock hour here, here in the East Coast is late. So, but I'm caffeinated. I'm ready to go for you guys.
Where are you actually?
We are in New York City, City, Manhattan.
Oh wow. Okay, so you're in New York City, up at 4 a.m. So it's 9 p.m.
It's 2 kids in Manhattan. That sounds like a blast.
Please tell me you have a nanny.
Got a nanny. We live in an apartment, so it's nice, tight quarters over here, but it's intimate. It's fun.
You can hug a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love how you have to just phrase it as, oh, it's cozy. I have a cozy apartment. It is cute and quaint versus when I lived in New York, it was a shoebox. In fact, one of the times I lived in New York, it was a 1-bedroom with dividers up that turned it into not a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom.
People get creative here in New York City, right? If you want to be in the action, you definitely make some sacrifices for it. Space is definitely one of those sacrifices. Absolutely.
That's it. But you're around a lot of movers and shakers, all the resources in the world. And so tell us a bit about yourself, and then we got to talk football too. I know you're in New York City where the Giants are horrible and they only look good compared to the other team, the Jets, who are even worse. But what are you doing in New York City, and what are you from there originally? What's your backstory?
Yeah, so I'm from here originally, grew up here. Let's see, what can I tell you about me, right? Yeah, I mean, I worked in finance for about 10 years. And when I was in finance, I was at a hedge fund, which became a family office. The family office, if you know a little bit about that, when you kind of lose all mandates as a result of being a regulated fund, you can do whatever the hell you want to do. And so one of the things that the fund allowed me to do was actually co-found a minor league football league. So I have experience operating a minor league football league. The league was actually acquired and now is turned into the USFL. So if you're into football and you're following what Fox Sports is doing as of late, the USFL is actually a league that I founded as well. So, after that, I had experience in the capital markets, had experience with operating, sort of a sports property, and I found my way into the hobby. Like I think a lot of other people did. I've grown up in the hobby my entire life. My dad's been a collector. lost touch with it for many years, got back into it, and I would say in 2018, 2019, and it's been fun to kind of launch Collectable and kind of see the rise of fractional. We're very excited about that, and it's been really exciting to partner with IMG as well on this on this live event, which we're going to have in about a week in Vegas as well.
I'm going to hit you with a hard-hitting question right out of the gate, Ezra.
Bring it.
When is Collectable going to be acquired? And the reason why I say that is because it feels like every other day there's an acquisition of some major company over another one. It's sort of a joke. I know you can't, even if you were being acquired, I know you can't talk about it, but I just thought I would just throw that out there.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think properties within the hobby are certainly certainly really interesting targets, right? I don't think there's a ton of people who really are catching on yet. I mean, we've seen a little bit of mainstream attention flow to the hobby, but I think this is really just the beginning of it. We are head down focused on building. It's been really interesting, really fun so far. But I think all that stuff, if you execute, that's stuff that generally I think takes care of itself down the road.
Tomorrow's video, Fanatics is buying Collectable. I'm putting it out just to get ahead of the story.
Dustin knows how many views he gets when there's breaking news because he puts out a video literally 16 minutes after he reads the article. So he wants to take advantage of that. So when he doesn't see any big news, viewership suffers. So he really needs companies
to get create some news.
3 times.
I will try to come up with some for you tonight, Dustin. If there's anything that we have lurking
give us fake news,
as a headline, then I will make sure to break a little news for you tonight.
The National Enquirer of the hobby. Aliens are going to be at the Mint Collective. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Well, going back to I thought it was really interesting with what you said with the USFL. I was going to say, look, as a Giants fan, we mentioned you were a Giants fan when we were talking a bit earlier. How much would you love to be in charge of the Giants organization? Because it sounds like with a business mind and your background, that if you were offered GM or something, you would at least have a good head start and a good head on your shoulders in terms of what it would be like to run a football team based on your prior experience. It must be pretty brutal being a Giants fan right now.
Well, hey, we went out tonight, and I believe it's on the topic of breaking news. The Giants have made an announcement. We have signed Tyrod Taylor to be our backup quarterback. So if that's not breaking news, Dustin, for you, I do not know what is. But look, I mean, I'm spoiled, right? I mean, I've been a Giants fan for 34 years, and I've seen a couple Super Bowls and championships and all that stuff. So times have generally been good to me. But yeah, we are absolutely going through a lull right now. It's okay. I got my Yankees too. I've seen 5 championships for the Yankees. The team that I'd really like to see win in my lifetime that I've not come anywhere close to it is my New York Knicks. My New York Knicks. So if there's any basketball fans out there, if there's one team that New York is dying to be respectable, it is the Knicks. When the Knicks are good, the city is on fire. The Garden is on fire. You've never been to a better atmosphere in your entire life than the Garden when the Knicks are respectable. I was actually at the Garden last year. It was my first experience being back in an arena after COVID when it was game 2 of the Knicks Hawks, right? When the entire Garden was chanting "F-U Trey" at Trae Young. The place, not even at capacity. There was 12,000 instead of 16,000, whatever it was. The place was shaking, and it was game 2 of an early round playoff series. So, again, I'm a Knicks fan first. I'm probably a Yankee fan second, a Giants fan third. But if I could pick one team to be respectful, respectable, I should say, it's the Knicks for sure.
I remember the John Starks, Patrick Ewing Knicks when they used to battle the Bulls, and they were they were so close. They took the Bulls to 7 games a few different times. They were just tough. They were right there. But
yeah, and then we met a guy by the name of Michael Jordan on a couple occasions, and then we met Lonzo Mourning and Tim Hardaway. We had those the battles against the Heat. So and then Miller and the Pacers. So we've always kind of been good at the wrong times, right? Instead of being good at the right times.
The one thing though I've learned, at least from the last couple of years, is that when one team starts to do good, you might have every team in that city do good because
momentum.
The Rays, I don't know, it doesn't make logical sense, but the Rays were in the ALCS championship. That's the length. I couldn't even watch a World Series game. I'm sorry. Baseball just doesn't do it. Even though it's the Rays, the team I would be going for, I couldn't watch an entire game. And then you have the Bucks winning and then being very competitive last year. Tom Brady comes back. That pretty much made my week, just hearing that news the other day. And then the Tampa Bay Lightning got over the hump a couple of years ago and have won 2 back-to-back Stanley Cups. So, like I mentioned before, Haley's Comet comes around every 85 years. I'm good with this little window for a Tampa fan. And then when it disappears, I'm okay having my weekends free. But when the Knicks do good, hey, watch out. Maybe the Rangers do good. Maybe the Giants do good. And you have like a 2-year window where all New York teams win, kind of like the way LA has been as well, where you have like the Dodgers and the Lakers before this season, and you have a couple teams there. But just saying.
Well, look, I think if the catalyst for all of our teams being good is the Knicks being good, I think we're gonna be waiting for a long time. But we will have to watch and see, of course.
For sure. Well, let's transition a bit. I know football's not your sport right now, except for the Giants, but the Giants aren't really doing too much. But in terms of Collectable, you got into Collectable. You founded the company. What exactly is it? And while I know of Dibs, we spoke to the CEO of Dibs last week. We've spoken. We're familiar with the Rally Road. We know some of this stuff, but
sure.
Why Collectable? Like, what's something that you saw that needed to be addressed or brought to the hobby and brought to collectors?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, look, we know Evan, we know Rally, of course, all really great entrepreneurs and ventures. I mean, I think this space certainly is not a winner take all market. I think there's plenty of room for a couple of really great sort of concepts to emerge from it. We saw a lot of things. I mean, I think first and foremost, we saw potentially a multi-trillion-dollar asset class that had really never been serviced properly, right? We saw, these assets as being real, financial products, ones that people, had been investing in, spending money on, in hopes of generating more money down the road. Yes, they're passion-led assets and they're collectibles, but they, at a certain investment grade, they definitely are investments. So we want to build, real infrastructure around it. We want to bring a, sort of a degree of regulation to the market as well. We want to build a really great consumer product and build easy on-ramps to the hobby, right? So, that's the opportunity we saw. It's been really fun to build it so far. We launched in September of 2020. We have about 75,000 users at the moment. We've done over $50 million in completed transactions. And I think we've been able to really make a name for ourselves in terms of being a really interesting channel to transact in really blue chip type collectible stuff. So the average asset value in our platform is well into the 6 figures. We've taken down some record breaking assets as well. We've got a couple record breakers that will probably be announced shortly as well. So, really exciting time for the hobby. I think fractional is very necessary. I think fractional is very necessary for the continued maturation of the industry to support higher and higher prices. So, we are seeing a lot. And, I also would say that because we've been able to build a really interesting and exciting consumer product that has removed a lot of the barriers to entry to kind of participate in collecting or investing in collectible, however you want to frame it, that collectible and fractional, for that matter, overall, has oftentimes become kind of a gateway into the hobby for a lot of people. It's oftentimes people's first access point, because all it is a couple clicks, on your cell phone, and boom, you're officially a collector, right? So, we also feel real responsibility to provide, quality content and education, similar to what you guys do, to, really bring people up to speed, keep people posted and sort of abreast as to hobby topics, but really just, to help people get up to speed in a hobby, which we love, we're incredibly bullish on, but at times can be a little obtuse for the average collector.
How do you guys, you guys are operating in kind of that high end space, like you said. I mean, it's 6-figure items. Do you guys feel pressure, or with more money kind of flowing to that higher end, you guys are kind of a gateway to be able to get in on that 6-figure collectible that nobody would be able to afford, or maybe they don't want to put that much capital into one item? That's where you guys come in. How much pressure do you feel to find the next big thing? It's like you guys, because you have to be, I assume you're competing with other fractionals, and not even just fractionals, but other, huge collectors that are out there spending millions of dollars. Do you feel pressure there, or do you feel like do you guys feel like you have enough inventory, I guess, to go? I know it sounds kind of weird to say.
No. It's a great question. And to be honest, we have too much inventory, right? It's a great problem to have, but it's still a problem to have, right? We really have established ourselves as a really trusted and exciting channel for a lot of high value collectors. Really what Collectable introduced to the entire ecosystem of collectibles, we're really proud of this, is the ability to monetize a partial stake in your collectible, right? So, if we use an analogy from the public markets, let's say you're lucky enough to buy Facebook, right, on its IPO at $12 a share, $20 a share, right? And it rode all the way up to $100 or $200 or $300, and you want to sell a partial stake in your Facebook holdings. You can definitely do that on the public markets. You can sell 5 shares at 50, 5 shares at 100, 5 shares at 150, et cetera, et cetera. You could not do that in the world of collectibles. If you want to sell a collectible or monetize a collectible before our company came along, you would have to sell all of it. And as a lot of people probably here know, getting a collector to sell their collectibles often is literally like prying a child out of their hands, right? People are very emotional about their collectibles, even in the face of kind of being the rational thing to do. So by introducing this form of seller flexibility, we have been inundated with supply that I would put against any auction house in the world. The challenge for us is we got to continue to build our user base, continue to build our market so that they're liquid. And continue to kind of patch fractional in interesting ways, in ways that are familiar and comfortable to the average collector today, right? So we're incredibly excited about this. We're also seeing a real avenue, whether the hobby likes it or not, but there is very, very large sums of money that are trying to get into this industry. In order to do it, they will have to deploy it in ways where it is a regulated product. You're not, when you're talking to the real big, sort of asset managers, and not to get all too financy and wonky here, but when you're talking to the real, sort of big money out there who's not individual collectors, it's really, it's the institutional money. And what we're hearing there is that they can't wait to be able to invest in it. They're getting, interest and demand to invest in it, but they need products that can handle that type of scale. And they need it to be in a way, there's a sort of an expression on Wall Street called career risk, right? Meaning that you have to make this as easy and sort of safe for these people to invest in on behalf of their clients. And by us, being SEC regulated, and by going through all these hoops and ladders to make it regulated and to build products in the way they're used to, we feel very comfortable and confident that we will be, kind of the first channel and avenue where the real money can kind of safely invest in sports assets.
The interesting thing is, like, a year ago, the market was way different, right? Right now, it's pretty much all the rare stuff, the high end stuff just continues to go up in value. And obviously fractionalized companies have a part of that, right? There's something to be said about that, because that's really what you're targeting. And that's what people have desired forever, but those numbers weren't nearly as inflated as they are now. And I know there's a negative pushback on fractionalized companies where, well, I want to have it in my home, but also, is the value really what it is? Or is that just, there's been certain examples with different companies, like, is this really the value, or is that just the value that they're promoting in order for them to make a profit? I mean, just in the market, I've noticed that in the last year, that middle tier of cards have really changed. The stuff that's not super high end, whether it's 10,000 or below or 20,000 or below, that stuff is just super volatile. The demographic has shifted. And now it's to the point where I would say, man, I would rather own a part of something amazing, that it's a Kobe Bryant. I saw a Kobe Bryant game worn shoes, or it's not even sports cards in a lot of cases. It's just, do you guys have cars, or like, there's like some different stuff. I don't know if it was Rally Road, but there was just really cool, iconic pieces, like 1955 Jaguar convertible, or that's really
Rally.
cool things.
I think you guys are just cards, though, right?
We are sports only today, right? So by sports, we've done cards, we've done memorabilia, we signed a deal today with a renowned sports artist. So you'll be seeing sports art on the platform. We've done photography, we've done tickets. we're definitely gonna have a couple creative assets coming too, which are related to sports, but probably not exactly, sort of down the sweet spot of what you'd expect from a sports collectible. So, we're certainly stretching our horizons and sort of creating, sort of new interesting opportunities for people on the platform. But as of today, we are still firmly in sports.
Okay, so I remember when I got back into cards, I was like, why isn't memorabilia bigger? Because a lot of times the cards that we like the most
Great
value
question.
the most are and so even to me, and like we talked about this last week, PMGs don't do anything for me. I don't think they look great. I know they're super rare, but if I'd rather have a Kobe Bryant autograph something, knowing that he's not here anymore, than anything that he didn't touch. Like that's the way I value it. In terms of alternate assets besides sports cards, that is really interesting you, or what you're seeing people are interested in, whether it's tickets, whether it's that kind of stuff. What's something that you think would really catch on next that might be in the realm of sports cards, but not necessarily just the RPA or the Jordan rookie PSA 10 or things like that?
So great. Yeah. I mean, look, it's been decades where that question about, sort of game use stuff has been asked, right? Because, if you just think about it rationally, it doesn't really make sense that a piece of cardboard of a player would sell for materially higher than the jersey that he actually wore, right? Or the helmet that he actually wore, or, an artifact from that iconic moment that you'll be telling your grandkids. It doesn't make sense, right? And especially when you put it in the context of, would you rather have this on your wall or that on your wall, right? I think almost everybody would say, I'd rather have that Babe Ruth, sort of, bat from 1924 than a little, sort of 1933 Gaudi card, right? So everyone intrinsically understands that, that memorabilia should be worth more. Why has it not? Right. I mean, in my opinion, and this is my opinion only, but my opinion, it's really a function of one thing, and it's one thing only, and that's confidence in the market, right? Confidence in the market. What cards have that memorabilia do not have is a really commoditized, standardized grading system, right? You know exactly how many there are. You can trust with a high degree of confidence, not to say it's perfect, but, with a lot of confidence that, a grade is a grade, and that kind of sets the value. When it comes to memorabilia, everything is intrinsically one of one, right? There's only that jersey that he wore in that game at that particular moment, but there's no pop report, right? There's no sort of, standardization of grading. And unfortunately, there's been a ton of bad actors. There's been a ton of fraud. There's been a ton of, for lack of better, and, I assume cursing is allowed in this channel, but I'm going to curse. There's been a lot of shit which has happened in memorabilia, which has over time eroded people's confidence to the point where a lot of people just say, you know what, I can't get there. I can't feel confident doing this, so I'm just going to avoid it altogether. I think, one thing you're going to see is, I think you're going to see, as technology improves, as things like photo matching gets better, I do think you're going to have, a higher degree of confidence over time in investing in memorabilia. Once you have that confidence, that builds liquidity in the markets, that builds depth of buyers. So if you had confidence, if you had liquidity, I personally think that ratio where people are like, well, why is memorabilia trading at a discount to the value of cards? I think if you had confidence, which creates liquidity, I actually think that would completely shift in the opposite direction. But I think it's going to be hard to get there. I know a lot of companies are working on it. Until they do, I think it's going to be challenging. But I do think over time, I'm very, very bullish on memorabilia, because I think a lot of the issues that it's currently facing could be resolved with the right technology.
I want to talk about Mint Collective, because I'll be going, Dustin will be going, but I must say, like, with you being in this part of the hobby and seeing all the data, seeing what's selling, what's getting hot, what's not, I want to know, what do you like that Collectible has had that you had to just buy shares in? What's something that you're like, man, that is so cool, I even have to buy?
I would love to answer this question honestly. I am forbidden from giving any kind of advice, because it could be construed as securities advice. So what I will say to to kind of I would say delicately answer the question, right? I personally like to collect the icons of the icons, right? I mean, I don't think, if you looked at what I own, I don't think you'd be surprised by any of it, right? But the guy who I like to PC the most is Jackie Robinson. because in my opinion, when you look at Jackie Robinson is someone who completely transcends sport. I bet you a lot of people don't even realize he played for the Dodgers or that he won the MVP or how good of a player he actually was. I don't think people even know, but they know who Jackie Robinson is. They know that he broke the color barrier. There's a Jackie Robinson Day. There's a day where he's celebrated every year. I mean, I think people just know he's a part of history. He's a part of culture, right? And so, I think you invest in people whose brands transcend sport and transcend generations. And when I'm looking at Jackie Robinson pricing compared to guys like Mickey Mantle, and this is not an insult on Mantle, because I think Mantle obviously is one of the most investable players out there, but it doesn't make sense to me, right, that Jackie Robinson would trade significantly cheaper than Mickey Mantle. Like a prime example, and this is not securities advice, so please do not interpret it as such, but it doesn't really make sense to me that a 1952 Mickey Mantle PSA 8, right, would be selling for $2 million when a 1952 Jackie Robinson 8.5, which is more rare than the 8 of Mantle, would be selling for essentially a third of the price. That doesn't make sense to me, right? So if I had to do one thing, and this is not securities advice, I like buying Jackie Robinson. I think he's a strong buy. I think he's a brand which will never go away. And so that's my slight tip for tonight. But again, it is not securities advice.
All right, guys, go out there, buy all the Jackie Robinson. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But I will say that a couple of points there is the Mickey Mantle card itself. The card, I feel like, is the iconic piece more than him, right? Like more than it's like Babe Ruth. I don't know a thing about Babe Ruth, but I know he was in the Sandlot. You have the autograph, like Honus Wagner. I have no idea. I've never heard Honus Wagner's name outside of the card, right? It's only true. The card that it's referencing is like, who's a Honus Wagner? I don't know who he was, what he did, if he won championships or not, but yet the card itself is the icon, while Jackie Robinson, I would say the player and his impact would be the iconic element, the legacy. Right. But Dustin, why don't you help us transition to the Mint Collective?
I'll seg us into the Mint Collective. So the one thing I wanted to ask, so you're doing it with IMG, and then I saw kind of later Omaha Productions and Peyton Manning, and I was I just wanted to hear kind of that backstory of like, how'd you get connected with IMG, and then also Peyton Manning? Was that something you guys had you been working with him for a while, or was that kind of a new entrant, over the last couple of months with the Mint Collective?
Yeah, so this event is the brainchild of a partnership between us and IMG. So we've been working together for months. We sort of came up with this idea, I would say, back in July or August, and it was sort of a quick sprint. We got very aligned on the vision for what we wanted to do. We signed this deal. We really started to work on it. It was supposed to be in January. For context, COVID happened in January, had to move back to March. And during the extra time, we started to sort of explain to Peyton Manning what we were doing. He has a relationship as well with IMG, and he and his company really bought into the vision. They became partners in our joint venture. So this is the event next week is a production of Collectable, of Omaha, and IMG, and then Collectable. So we're really, really excited by it. I think it's going to be a terrific event. We've worked really, really hard in it. I hope everyone comes down for it. The mission here is really to continue to elevate the hobby, right? This has been a really exciting time for a lot of people within the hobby, for a lot of collectors. This has also been, a really treacherous time, I think, for some, just because of how much change there is. We really were fascinated by, what a real thought leadership event could look like. I mean, this is something that happens, I would say quite often and commonplace in other industries. It's never really been done, for a while, at least in our sort of neck of the woods, right? So we want to create something where we brought a lot of, really amazing people to the forefront, that we brought a lot of people, on panels, and, sort of brought a lot of people under one roof to really debate, what's happening in the hobby, and to really stimulate a really good dialogue that can hopefully shape the direction of this industry for years to come. We've been really excited about the type of guests who are going to be there, the type of panels. You mentioned Peyton, of course, but we have Josh Luber, and we've got Dana White, and some other really big names. eBay is the title sponsor of it. So it's really exciting to us that we've been able to collate and put on an event that, has such amazing sponsors, and that we have such amazing people who've kind of also signed on for the vision and signed on to, what we're really trying to create, which is an event to elevate the industry and to celebrate the industry's past, but also kind of chart its next chapter of growth in the future.
All right. I mean, what excites me about Mint Collective is that it's so multi-dimensional, right? Because it's not just the cards, it's not just the ideas, the thought leaders, everyone meeting, but when this is over after the end of next week, for you personally, what would mark this as a very successful first year of Mint Collective? Like, what's the KPI for you for this event so that you could decide if it's right for Collectible to be involved in it next year? Like, what's the goal at the end of it?
Yeah, look, I'll say this. It is our first time doing this. So, we are fully committed to this being, a sort of multi-year thing, a strong property that hopefully, is really embedded into the hobbyist calendar. I think, it has so much potential. Obviously, this is the first year, so we're anticipating some bumps and bruises along the way. I think it's only going to get better with time. What success looks like. Look, I think for us, for IMG, for Collectible, for all the major sponsors, we want to add value, right? We want people to leave the show and feel like they not only got their money's worth, but they got a deal. That they came, they met, networked with a lot of great people, that they have actionable insights to take away from it, that they realize that the strength and the possibilities of the hobby and the hobby community, that they feel more educated, that they had fun, right? So, I think for us, it's really, we want to add value. This truly was an event that we put on almost selflessly. It's been, for a little inside baseball, it's been a lot of work for Collectible, right? And, it's been a lot of effort, and in a lot of ways, it's been a labor of love between Collectible and IMG. We've, almost purposely, kind of removed or reduced Collectible's branding of the event to help promote other partners and sponsors and people of the industry, because we really, really have this belief that, if we grow the pie, right, if we make the hobby much bigger and elevate everyone's boat, that Collectible will be sitting all the prettier for it, right? So, I think that's it. I think success looks like people leave the event by and large, they feel like we added value, they feel more educated, they feel more confident about the hobby, and that they want to come back for year 2 of this, of course.
That sounds good to me. I mean, it sounds fun. It sounds different, right? Like, I mean, here in LA, there are a lot of card shows, and they are great because it's like the mecca of cards here in LA. You have the highest end collectors, highest end cards. There's 2 card shows every weekend. You get to choose which one. It's more about FOMO because, like, do I go to this one or that one? And then for something like this, though, where I couldn't go to the Culture Collision, or I could have, but it was in Atlanta. That's a very far flight for something where I get really good card shows locally. But then you have the national that's once a year. And then this, and I was like, well, I don't know exactly what to expect from this, because I know Industry Summit is B2B, right? That's very B2B. This sounds like it's a bit different, where it could be B2B, but it's also good B2C. And it sounds like maybe this is more media focused. Is that not media focused, but we'll have more media, I guess, media sources or media representatives, or it could be more media friendly. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, so it's funny. There truly is something for everyone here, right? If you're, we're gonna have vendors set up, so I'm sure there'll be a lot of deals, which are more B2B. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of deals which are B2C. There's gonna be a lot of collectors and hobbyists. There's gonna be a lot of companies there. There's gonna be auction houses there. There's gonna be fractional platforms there. So there's gonna be people of all different sort of levels of interest within the hobby, all under one roof. I do think your point is correct on the media. I mean, I think this is going to be, it already has been, but a really well publicized event, a well promoted event. Obviously, I think that's one of the things you get with IMG. There is an article, which apparently is coming out in the Wall Street Journal in the next couple of days about this event and about sports collectibles in general. So, yeah, I mean, I think this has the potential to be a real innovative event. I think one that the hobby needs. It'll be a lot like have grown accustomed to with other shows, in the sense where there's a marketplace and all that, but it'll be different. It'll be a little bit more elevated. And I think, really we want to focus on some of the thought leadership component, because again, I think there's a lot of interesting questions and debates and, sort of things happening in the hobby, which it's an incredible time to be having this conference. So we're really excited about it, and again, it's year one, but we fully expect that it'll only get better with each passing year.
Is this something that you feel is eventually could become as big as the national as far as the size of the card show part, but then also has the added elements that you offer, kind of all the thought leadership and all that? Is that where you see it going, or is it more of just like, hey, we're putting the first one out here, we'll see what happens, and is it more kind of go with the flow, or do you have kind of an end game for these types of events?
Yeah, well, look, I'll say this about the national. They've done an incredible job, right? For 40 something years, whatever it's been. I don't think there's any single person in our hobby who would debate or question that they are the Super Bowl of the hobby, right? I mean, I think everyone kind of marks their calendar every single year, and sort of tells their wife they're going to be away for 3 days out of the calendar year. So I cannot see us really competing with the national. I don't think we'd ever want to. I do think that there is room on the hobby calendar and sort of space in the hobby appetite for both another big event, but also an event that kind of scratches a slightly new itch. Right. So, again, we're not putting this on to just become the next national. I think that's an incredible event, and they do a great job. We're doing this because we really think that in some ways that, that there's a portion of the national, which is not kind of scratching what some of us really want, which is a real thought leadership conference, right? Which is a real sort of place to become educated, to network and to trade. And yes, all those things, right. But to also really get educated and get smart, and to network and connect with some of the biggest leaders in the hobby, right? And so I think that is slightly different than what the national is. But again, you will see a lot of things that look and feel familiar, of these shows. I think that's important as well.
And now that I think about it closer, it sounds like it would be more of a combination of the national and industry summit, where when I went to industry summit, it was closed off. It was not really closed off as in this is for B2B. It's not like a thing for the average person to come to. It's only for breakers and content creators and certain people. And it's all sessions, but not really too much of the other stuff. While the national is like, welcome to the national. Everything's going on. The card show portion is the biggest portion. You have exhibitors and all this. That's great, but you don't really have the other side of it. And this looks like the evolution of combining the two into one event. Plus, I think the thing with IMG is I'm like, what is IMG exactly? I'm looking it up, and it's athletic performance, right? Where athletes go to perform.
It's a massive sports agency, but I mean, but then also facilities for training and all that stuff. Yeah.
And so you kind of went into this before we went on, but I go, when I think of sponsorships, I think, all right, eBay, that's a normal one. You have PSA, you have the companies that make sense from the get-go. And then the question is, IMG, a giant sports academy in Florida, why would they be so interested in being a partner of an event where it's sports cards and collectibles, where it's, we haven't seen their name attached to other things? So what's your familiarity with IMG? Just because I'm curious, because I think all of us would love to see more athletes get into cards. And because, I mean, it's kind of weird for them to be separate from the cards that they are on pictures of, right? I want to see, Chris Godwin and Tom Brady and Gronk holding up the cards that I'm collecting, because now it's tying me closer to the athlete, which is the way I always associated cards to be.
Yeah, look, I do think you're going to see a lot of athletes really get back into the hobby if they haven't already through Fanatics. Or Fanatics, obviously, one thing they did obviously is they got the PA, of a lot of major sports involved. So I think, in my conversations with the MLB PA, what Fanatics has really done is kind of rejuvenated and sort of re-excited interest, in the players about the sports card vertical, right? For many years, it was completely separate from what these players really thought about or were excited about, because it was such a small revenue stream for them relative to other sponsorship deals or other licensing agreements. So, what Fanatics, to their credit, did is they really embedded this and sort of got, the players, excited about cards and the hobby again, right? So I do think you're going to see a lot of athletes, a lot of celebrities. I think you're going to see a lot of that coming down the pike. Which, look, I mean, I think, we've only had a couple real influencers so far come into the, in the hobby. I think the hobby can be a little bit of a cynical bunch sometimes with some of these influencers, but
What?
Can't really. I know, right?
Cynical.
Shocking.
You think there's
Shocking.
negative people in this hobby? What?
But look. I mean, what we can't argue as a hobby is that they do bring awareness, and they bring attention, and they bring depth of the market, and they bring excitement to the market, right? And I think all those things are.
We got Drake in the chat now. Not in our chat. But Drake is in the hobby now.
I was going to say, if he's in our chat. Drake, if you're in the super chat, drop $1,000 super chat, or if you're in the chat, drop $1,000 donation in the super chat so we know it's
Phoenix
you.
Rising. I mean Drake. Thanks for showing up.
All right.
Exactly. So yeah, look, I do think you will definitely see a lot more celebrities and athletes. I think athletes themselves are certainly feeling a little bit more interested and probably incentivized to promote the hobby, which I think should be good for all of us. To go back to Brad's question on IMG is a really interesting company. I mean, they do a lot of things, right? They have agencies, and they've got live events properties, and they own leagues. They own the UFC. I mean, they've got a lot of different hands in a lot of different places within sports. They've also been making investments within sports collectibles companies, right? So they have a little bit of sort of a tentpole within the hobby through some of the operating businesses within it. They were very interested in the live events space, in sports collectibles. Obviously, they saw that the collectible category was rising. They saw that the National had been, the sort of Super Bowl of the hobby for 40 years, but there hadn't really been, I would say much else done on large scales aside from that. And, they identified Collectable as one of those companies who were doing a really, sort of innovative, interesting thing that could bring the hobby and interest of the hobby to a whole different level, right? So, we struck up this partnership. It's been a really great experience. They've been great partners to work with. Through them, we've been able to bring on, other athletes and other relationships. So, we're excited by it. I definitely think that, sort of having their capabilities, having their Rolodex, having their relationships is going to be really, really helpful to growing the Mint property over time.
Going back to Collectibles kind of overall goal, and this is like big picture stuff. I'm just curious, you had mentioned kind of the institutional money, and, you have Wall Street background, you have a finance background. It's kind of like, when you hear Kevin O'Leary talking about cryptocurrency, a lot of his focus is around, I'm just waiting for the institutional money. I'm waiting for the regulation. So the institutional money comes in, and then when they come in, then we're all good. That's kind of like, his overall viewpoint. What he talks about is Collectibles focus, and like long-term, is it a big focus on the retail investor, like a Robin Hood of collectibles type thing? Or is it more of just kind of, just staying, proving yourself, proving yourself. And then the institutional money comes in and you guys are a part of that ride, or is it a combination?
Yeah, great question, right? So I think that we could build a market infrastructure that really has both a retail product and an institutional product. I think we could also build products for different types of participants. If you think about the public markets, right? I mean, there's individual traders within that, and there's large scale institutions who, create financial products like ETFs and mutual funds. There's speculators, there's long-term investors, there's the Warren Buffetts, and then there's the day traders, right? So, I think at scale, we can really create something that, all different types of market players can do, right? So if you want to be a quote unquote individual stock picker and speculate on, a JA card or a Zion card, we can probably do that for you. If you want to, if you want to have sort of blue chip exposure to a diversified portfolio of Michael Jordan assets, we can probably do that for you too, right? I think, the chasm that we sort of have to cross right now is getting to a sufficient scale where it makes sense for the institutional money to come in. I think one thing, and it's going to sound a little twisted, but it's true. One interesting dynamic that I think people should really watch in this hobby, right, is that as rising prices of the high end of the market continue to go up, in a weird way, that creates this effect where prices are likely to go even higher. And I'll explain. right? So when the big money, when the institutional money, when the private equity firms, when the hedge funds, what we're hearing is that it doesn't really make a lot of sense for them to spend 500 grand or $1 million, right? For them, it sounds like a lot of money to us. And this is a hobby that obviously, every time we hear $1 million sale, that's big news to us. In the grand scheme of institutional investments, that's tiny. That's tiny, right? So there's a scale difference here that the hobby really has to and is building towards. When you hear the art market routinely has sales are in the tens of millions. We've never had one, right? If we if an 8-figure sale happens in the hobby this year, and I predict not one but multiple it'll be the first 8-figure sale in hobby history, right? The first in hobby history. That happens routinely in other asset classes, routinely, right? So we have a scale challenge. Large money is desperately looking to deploy money in large amounts to this hobby, but they need sufficient scale to do it. So, when something gets higher and higher and higher, that actually becomes more and more exciting for large institutional players with more money. And so I think you're going to have this effect where the higher prices go, the likelier they are to go even higher, because you're actually able to bring in big demand, where big demand is just not overly interested at these price points today.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because it's like the higher something goes, naturally I go, well, then it's closer to a bubble and popping. And I think that's accurate in a lot of ways. But it's also because, living here in LA, where real estate, the average house, I think, is $900,000. So, I mean, what's good about that is that when someone sells a house and makes $500K profit, they can put that money somewhere else. While that's just a very normal profit, while someone with a big house can make a $3 million profit and it can fund more things. And I go, would people here, or would these high-end, people with a lot of money, would they even pay attention to a hobby where the most expensive card is $40,000, $50,000, and now the numbers are in the millions and it's getting higher? But it's like when you see one of these massive record-breaking sales hit ESPN, the ESPN.com's homepage, or Forbes or Fox News or something, a thought that goes through my mind is, all right, how many business people that are investing a lot of money are now looking at this a bit more seriously? And I guess it goes both ways, where it's like, I don't want everything to keep going up, but I know with it comes more money, more attention, more opportunities. Especially as content creators, I'm like, good, I want more excitement, more people that don't mess around with $5,000, $10,000 investments, because if you're a high-end art collector, you're in the millions already. You wouldn't bother with something that's $50,000 because you're beyond that realm. And so it's going to open more opportunities. I just think that's a very interesting way of describing it, because it looks like there's a threshold that needs to be crossed in order for institutional money, or these companies or these funds, to take the hobby seriously as an investment. And have we hit that threshold now, or do you think that it would take a $10 million card for it to hit that? Or what would you say that threshold would be before institutions really go, okay, now I've seen enough, now it's time to go in?
I think what's happening over the last year or two is you're seeing the very first early adopters of institutional capital starting to get interesting, right? And starting to get interested, right? So there are funds currently out there now who who manage 5 million, 10 million, 25 million, right? So you have funds whose sole mandate is to invest in sports cards. You have it, right? And to nobody's surprise, those funds are largely going after the exact same assets, right? So we talk about iconic assets, the 52 Mantles, the Jackie Robinsons, the Jordans, right? Everyone's going after the same stuff. It's not rocket science what people are chasing in this hobby at the high end of the industry, right? So, I don't think we are close to the point where, real serious money can be deployed, but I do think it is very, very much coming. I would say you're looking at 2 to 5 years, I think, where it can get really interesting. And I think in 10 years, which I know sounds like, a very long time, but in sort of in financial history, 10 years is relatively short. I think in a decade from now, you will have collectibles very much part of people's portfolio, in the same way how, every platform offers you the ability to get stocks and bonds and crypto and gold and all that, I think you will be able to get exposure to collectibles and in the very same way under the very same platforms, right? So I think that's what the future looks like. I don't think we're there. We've got a lot of building to do. I think the industry has a lot of credibility to continue to build. I think we have a lot of narrative to continue to spin, right? I mean, I think one of the things that which really separates the art market from sports collectibles, sports cards is just the narrative, right? It's the narrative that wealthy people invest in art, right? Like everyone believes that Monets and Manets and Picassos, everyone knows that those are investments. People, when you tell them you're investing in sports cards, it's getting a little bit more mainstream and accepted. But if you tell your mom that you're buying a sports card as an investment, she'll probably think you're crazy, right? If you told her you're buying a Monet or Monet Picasso, she'll probably think you're brilliant, right? So it's a bit of a narrative game. Narrative takes time, but every single confirmed high profile sale that's on ESPN or CNBC or CNN or Bloomberg is amazing for the long term confidence of the industry. That's something that I think. I'm always thrilled to see, even if it's not on Collectible, I'm thrilled to see it because it's slowly kind of nicking away at the perception that this is not an asset class. I think once the perception is there and the prices reflect that, then I think we're off to the races.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some great comments in the chat as well. And this one I want to bring up first by Jonathan, who asked about Collectible being available in Canada and other countries. Do you have an update on that or any timeline?
Well, I'll say that this is by far the most frustrating thing about a regulated entity like Collectible, right? Is that we're subject to securities laws, right? In Canada, unfortunately, even though we're so close in proximity, we are very different in how we perceive securities, unfortunately. So we are working as hard as we possibly can, as fast as we possibly can. Unfortunately, it's not completely up to us. What I will say is that I believe over the next year, there will be a way for Canadians to invest on and with Collectible. It probably won't be in the exact way that you can in the US, but we are opening up channels and capabilities so that if you want exposure to stuff that we have access to or stuff that's on our platform, there will be a way to do it. So we will make some future announcements on that, but know that we're very much aware. We would love to be in Canada. It's going to be a great market once we're there. We're working as hard as we can, but it's just not ready to go yet.
Awesome. And this was a great question by John. And this is something that I feel like existed before, a trickle down effect, which makes sense. But when we see cards that sell for record amounts, it made sense that there would be a trickle down effect. But then we also have all these other market factors and forces like, well, would it trickle down to a Prism Silver, which is going to go up in its PSA 10 pop counts, or is going to maybe not be as good looking as this other card? Or like, what's your stance now on when you see a card sell for a record amount and you see, well, let's say it's a Michael Jordan numbered to 25, whatever auto card, and it sells for $800,000 or whatever. What's your thought in terms of trickle down? Do you feel like there's it's not really as relevant because there's such a big cutoff now, or are you still seeing some sort of trickle down or I don't know, residual effect from it?
Yeah, I think sentiment on this is very cyclical and seems to have completely shifted a lot over the last couple of years. So, if you rewind probably 2 years ago, a year ago, at this point, a lot of people were collecting base cards because they were liquid and they were fun and they were the true sort of indications of value. That obviously has completely shifted to the point where now we're seeing, if it's at the high end, it's absolutely exploding. And if it's not, if it's mid to low end, it's getting demolished, right? So, I think it's hard to know exactly what the future has in store for it. I do think you'll see, spurts and pops where that becomes relevant. Look, I mean, I think you have to separate investment grade and non-investment grade. Investment grade and speculative, right? Investment grade stuff. What I really feel confident saying this, I believe, again, this is not securities advice, but I do believe that the high end of the industry is going to go parabolic. I really believe that, and I really believe that because just knowing what I know and hearing what I hear, I think there's potentially billions, if not more, that is looking to be deployed into sports cards and sports collectibles. They're going to do it when prices get to a certain level and the industry gets to a certain scale. So what I really do think will happen is that as the high end of the industry gets higher, it's actually going to bring in higher and higher and higher prices. And everyone who is investing in this stuff is chasing all the same assets. So in my opinion, the high end will go parabolic. I mean, I want to stress, I actually do think it'll go parabolic relative to today's prices, to the point where in 10 years, you're going to be laughing that mantles and eights sell for $2 million. I could be wrong, but that's my personal opinion, not securities advice at all. On the low end of the industry, yeah, please. Go for
I was just going to say, just on that note, because we have seen a shift over the last 12 months, big time, where there was that massive like Q1 2021. I think eBay sold like $1 billion in cards in Q1 or something crazy. And then you saw kind of it slide off, over the last 12 months. Did you guys see an uptick, just being that you guys would have been kind of, I guess, an outlet to be able to get to that high end stuff, even if it's a fractional piece of it, for somebody that's, middle-class family person that's trying to get into that high end stuff? And I'm not really talking about user base necessarily, but did you guys see an uptick in business over the last 12 months because of that shift?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've seen upticks, because we're growing as a brand, we're acquiring more users, right? So we are obviously seeing more and more transaction volume on the platform. So I'm not sure it's necessarily sort of correlated to that, but I'll say a couple things. One is I don't root for sort of declining prices in mid to lower end grades, right? I mean, I think for one important reason. One, I think. You want people to like the hobby and have fun with the hobby and want to spend more money in the hobby, right? And so, when people, came in, a lot of people came into the hobby over the last couple of years. When people buy base cards and they're down materially and they're looking at, what they own, like, gosh, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm down. It's not good for confidence, right? So, I hope everyone makes money. I hope people enjoy it, have fun. On a performance level, I will say, one really interesting thing that we've been tracking is the performance of the high-end index on Collectable, which really is comprised of assets that at the very low end, you're looking at 15,000, the high end, almost $10 million, right? But really investment-grade stuff. We're sourcing and curating investment-grade material. Over the last couple of months, obviously, with the world seemingly coming to an end and the equity market's down 30%, or where they are, and crypto market's down 40%, and hell and high water everywhere you look, Collectibles index is up 7%. Right. So what we have seen is that people do look at these tangible, assets as safe haven vehicles. They have been historically, not to say they always will, and not securities advice again. I want to stress that everything I'm saying is not securities advice, but historically, this has been a very resilient asset class. This has been, you can look at data, which goes back to COVID. Obviously, we saw what happened with COVID. We saw what happened in .com crash. We saw what happened after 9/11. We've seen that sports cards, not every sports card, the investment grade blue chip sports cards have retained and maintained and oftentimes stayed flat or gone up when, the equity markets are down, when other asset classes are down. And, why? I mean, it's hard to know, honestly. It's hard to know whether that's the passion factor, whether it's, just because they've been, less liquid, so it's harder to sell them. I think that'll be a really interesting thing to explore as markets get more liquid, not less liquid, right? But, historically, these have done really well in times of kind of economic stress and macro uncertainty like we have now. So we are seeing prove out in real time an investment case for these being a diversified part of one's portfolio, a relatively uncorrelated part of one's portfolio. And you're seeing play out in real time in a day-to-day mark-to-market exchange like Collectable, that these actually have real merit. And I think that's a thesis that will be really interesting to track as Collectable continues to evolve and grow and, sort of have more transaction volume on the platform.
I've got one that just popped into my head, and I wanted to get your take on it because it's fairly new news. But eBay just had kind of, I think it was an earnings call or quarterly call or something, and they talked about some of the new things that they're doing. One of the things that they mentioned was fractional, which was kind of surprising because I know with you guys, like everything runs through the SEC. It's got to be, so it's confusing how that would, like, if I want to just fractionalize a card, how they would be able to do that. Maybe they have some sort of a way of doing kind of what you guys did, But what's your takeaway from something like that? Like, platform like eBay giving you the ability to fractionalize.
I love it. I love it. Look, I think, if anything, it's one of the best validators of fractional, right? I think, to have a company like eBay with that much scale and that much volume and, their dominating presence in the hobby, say fractional is on their long-term roadmap. I don't think there could be any bigger validator in the world than that, right? So look, we've always believed in fractional. We really think it's the next wave of the future. I think collectible companies would probably largely agree with that. Sometimes people who say the word fractional don't really understand exactly what fractional is or how it works, or things like the Howey test with the SEC and securities laws. So it's easy thing to say you're going to do. It's not always easy to actually do it. But look, I do think overall when you hear things like that, I get excited. Honestly, I get excited because it means that we're doing something right. We're on a major trend. That this is something that is definitely not going away. Will only get bigger and bigger. And I'm excited to kind of see the evolution of fractional, see the evolution of our process, speed things up a little bit, but really kind of ingrain fractional into the way collectors collect and investors invest. Right. I think today you still have it kind of separated. It's in its own silo. But I think what you're going to see over the next couple of years is fractional is going to be side by side. Right. You can buy physically or invest physically, or you can buy fractionally and invest fractionally. I think you're going to see them side by side in ways where some of that barrier to entry is really going to be kind of streamlined for you.
Yeah, and especially if the high end does go parabolic, as you believe it may or will, it's like if you want a piece of that card, this is going to be the only real option for 99% of people. So it's like, yes, you can't exactly have it in your home as a collectible, just like I can't have a Tyrannosaurus Rex skull in my living room unless I can afford the whole thing. But maybe owning a piece of it as an investment is a cooler thing than owning a stock in a company. Real quick, because we have Otis, we have Dibs, we have Rally Road. What is the one or two lines where you would describe Collectable and the competitive advantage or the niche you're going after in comparison to these other competitors that, if anything, it's proving that the fractionalized model is doing well. The fact that you do have some good competitors that are doing well and are offering some great services.
Yeah, no, all great, right? And again, I don't think that this is a winner take all market. I don't think this is a zero sum market. You look across, how many auction houses are there? A lot, right? And all of them seem to be doing just fine, right? You look at Heritage, they're announcing record, sort of results. Golden, record results, right? So when the industry does well, platforms do well, auction houses do well, manufacturers do well, right? So everyone does well when the hobby is doing great. So, I don't look at them as competition. I've said this a gazillion times on the record, and I mean it. I think I look at them more as partners, right? I think we are all really innovating and sort of bringing fractional to the mainstream. When you look at our collective assets under management, very fancy term, but you look at our collective assets under management relative to how big this could become and will become, tiny, absolutely tiny, right? So all of us really need to, kind of continue to execute, continue to prove fractional, continue to gain trust of the market, right? I think trust is something that is incredibly important in collectibles. I think curation will be a differentiator. I think experience will be a differentiator. I think client and customer services will be a differentiator. I think returns generated for shareholders will be a differentiator. I think liquidity will be a differentiator. So again, I think there's so much, right? This is early days. Collectible is focused on building a great team of industry leaders. We made a couple of great hires recently. We brought on Joe Orlando, who used to be CEO of PSA, of course. He came on board. We brought on Nick Sapero, who used to work at Heritage Auctions. We brought on a slew of other people on the live event side. We brought on Ray Schulte, right? So we're bringing on people with decades of experience who know what they're doing, who are real experts in what they do, because we believe that, again, expertise, curation, storytelling, trust, liquidity, all these things are so important to kind of being that preeminent fractional company. And we're definitely investing in all those things.
Awesome. We definitely want to respect your time. I have one final question, which is more of overall, from your perspective, what you see on the day-to-day, what you know based on the conversations you're having, all that stuff, what are some things that you would love to see in the hobby by the end of the year? Let's just say it's a bold prediction. It is something we say by December 31st, 2022, I would not be surprised if, or I'd love to see blank. What would you say?
Well, so the prediction I gave at the start of the year, which we've not seen yet, but I really think it's coming, is I think you're going to see not one but multiple 8-figure sales in the hobby. Right. And so we've been talking a lot about prices, I know. So I'm going to stick to that. I think you'll see not one, but multiple 8-figure sales, new records being set. And, in my head, I look at all those things as really positive. Hopefully Collectable is a part of a couple of them. But if not, I'm thrilled because it means that the hobby continues to get mainstream, that, we continue to scale as an industry to the point where we can continue to sort of really gain in relevance. So, I think there's a lot of good happening. I think the Mint Collectible will be a really exciting show. Hope to see you guys down there in Vegas. Hope to see your audience down here in Vegas. And thank you for having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been our pleasure. And guys, if you're on the fence about going, it's next weekend, correct? March 25th through 27th in Las Vegas at the Hakkasan. Couldn't have been in a cooler city where you can do anything you want at night. You can come a day before, stay a day after. Living here in Southern California, it's just an hour flight, a 4.5-hour drive. I can't wait to go. I'm glad Dustin's looks like he's going to be attending after it not looking it'd be feasible with his schedule. So guys, if you're on the fence,
the red-eye flights.
Remember Vegas
right.
Flights I think are usually pretty good for the most part, just because of the gambling and everything else that they're trying to do to get you to the city. So if you can make it to Mint Collective, even for a day or two, not the full length, definitely come. We'd love to see you there. And you can go to, what's the website for it? Themintcollective.com to buy your tickets. And we'll be there. There's tickets from $15 on up. You don't have to get the most expensive ones. You can save your money by getting the cheaper tickets and just making sure you're there. So Ezra, we really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure.
Justin, congrats on the name change. We're excited for you. And can't wait to see you in Vegas. Have a good one, guys.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
See you guys.